Spoken
I
language.
haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed at that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I haven't dreamed of waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass for more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I hung up that cape for the last time.
Return to Cape Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Andy N's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken language.
You wake up one morning after not reading a book since your school days and you decide to be a writer. With no good or bad writing to compare against your own. You just know how to write and anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong. Hell, maybe they're jealous of your natural ability to craft a masterpiece. After all, most people need to learn through a combination of books, courses, critical feedback and workshops. Not you though. It's not their fault they don't realise your natural talent, but they soon will.
How to Write Wrong is the new book by Amanda Steele. The book, which is an interactive story, gives the reader multiple options throughout its story. The book can be purchased from Amazon.
Spoken
Thank
language.
you today for tuning in to Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up at the beginning of 2016 and as of recording has over 200 sessions in our archive. Although the podcast can be heard on Anchor, iTunes, Apple, Spotify, YouTube and literally 10 or 11 other networks, the full archive can be found at Spoken Label, all one word, spokenlabel.bandcamp.com. On Bandcamp, it is set as pay what you want, so you are entitled, if you wish, you can download it or stream it for nothing. But if you throw me a couple of pennies my way, it is always eternally grateful to help me maintain the operating costs and future running costs of this podcast. Enjoy.
Spoken language.
Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house again. And this is something I've not done before on Zoom tonight. I've had conversations with more than one person in person, but I've got two people on Zoom tonight. And this is going to be fun, because these are two quite interesting people. And in some ways, they both work on a lot of similar projects, but they've come from, I think, in some ways, quite different backgrounds. So, we'll jump straight into it, because then I'll come and go along. So, would one of you like to introduce yourself first of all, tell them about your creative background, and then the other one starts? So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't mind. Let you two decide.
Are we flipping a coin? I started speaking, so
You go first, Mike.
It's difficult to flip a coin in Zoom, innit? Like if you were in person,
Yeah, I agree with that. You go for it, Mike.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening. My name's Saif. I'm from Charlton in Manchester, and I'm actually a games designer. I studied games design and animation, and I've done many different things, from advertising to producing serious games for military uses. But these days I somehow ended up creating experiences for museums in the Middle East. So I run a group of companies that specializes in using technology and sort of digital storytelling techniques to enable communities to talk about their history, their heritage, their culture.
Hi everyone, I'm Farah and I work with Saif on his team. So I actually trained as a barrister, and after working in the legal field for a good few years, I transitioned into the humanitarian sector. So I was doing all sorts of aid work in refugee camps and communities across the globe. And this really helped to really fuel my desire to learn more about arts and culture and heritage. And it really helped fuel my creative aspirations as well, because in my free time, I used to love writing and performing spoken poetry, which is something that I now do on a freelance basis. And I actually work as a creative, and I've worked with Ilham Studio locally as well as globally. So what I really like doing is just using my experiences to really inspire and educate and empower people. So yeah, hi.
Brilliant. Now, how did you both first meet then? So obviously, like I said, you both come from quite different backgrounds and perspectives. So I'm interested in how you combine your work here. But first of all, tell us how you actually met them.
It was completely random, wasn't it, Farah? We sort of, we both got involved with the project a couple of years ago called MacFest, which is a sort of festival for Muslim arts and culture that was sort of started a couple of years ago as a community style project. And
Yeah, I felt the need to educate Saif about refugee communities across the world when he was telling me about the scope of the projects he was working on across the Middle East, because there was such a
I can't even remember what I finished. I think I just finished a project that was, or finishing a project that was for an organization called the King Abdulaziz Center for National Dialogue. Most people probably won't have heard of that because it's Saudi Arabia specific. But there's another project. It's the sister company for a bigger project in Vienna, which is called the King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Center for Intercultural Dialogue or Interreligious Dialogue. CASID is the abbreviation, and the organization's aim is to basically foster cultures and religions talking to each other to promote kind of peace and harmony throughout the world. And it was quite an unusual exhibition. It was about dialogue, and we sort of got talking, and we found our sort of creative brains worked very well together, and we ended up sort of partnering up on different projects, and and became friends.
Cool. Now, Farah, what you wouldn't know, Seth sent over to me originally a video on YouTube, and I'm trying to get it up now, but my internet's gone frozen on me, which is typical, that really, in my looks. And there we are. Right, and the video itself was quite an epic piece, but I want to ask you both about that when I get called "I Should Have Hugged You Tighter When We Last Met." And this, I actually felt it was an incredible piece to watch. It was. I felt like it was the journey of a life because it goes 6 minutes 20. And can you both tell us about this video then? Because I want people. I'm going to share the link to this.
I'll let Farah lead on this because I wasn't really involved officially in the project. I'm a big supporter of her and Bal and the rest of the team, but I can't really claim credit for anything in this piece other than admiring it from afar and making a few bits of artwork.
I needed that hand in it, Seth. I wasn't sure to what level. And obviously, I know you're in the video, Farah, because I heard you poem coming halfway through. Yeah. Tell us a bit about this piece.
As a creative, you cannot take credit. If you're a real creative, you will never take credit for someone else's work because it's like, you're stealing someone else's soul.
Yeah. I think, so firstly, thank you for all the compliments. So this was a piece that was initially supported and commissioned by Opera North in Leeds. And it was produced by producer Balraj Singh Samurai from Manchester's Swing Ting, and it was a collaborative piece where we collaborated with artists from across the globe. So we actually had other artists from Kingston, Jamaica, who provided work that we then included in this piece. There was a tabla player from London. So I myself, I'm from Manchester. So it was really a collaboration of national as well as international creatives, really, to give this melting pot of culture and feelings as well, because the piece was our response to how the lockdown has affected communities, specifically BAME communities, how we were feeling about COVID, how we felt about lockdown, what our emotions were. And again, something that I was, I did a spoken word piece, which is in the latter half of the video. And something that I was very, very passionate about delivering was a message, but a collective message, not just of truth, but also of hope and of unity. And because something that I'm very, very passionate about is using any platform that comes my way, to use that as a platform that can be used to give a voice to people who may feel that they don't have a voice. So it was, and then after that we had video elements as well, which were merged into, and you'll be able to see this on YouTube. So we wanted to really just use the entire piece as a platform which held significance and provided a service to people around us. So even where people may not necessarily have had the confidence to stand up and say what they were feeling, we wanted to inspire them to get up and take a stance. What was really interesting about this piece, if I may continue, was just the fact that when it was released, it sort of fell around the same time as the BLM movement. And I think that what was amazing about that was that there's a specific line in the piece which reads,
My favorite line by far.
yeah, thank you. It reads, "As Brexit Brigade became tough to condone, we start clapping for people we told to go home. No longer are we spoiled by choice and variety. Empty shelves now portray a crumbled society." And you know, these are not just empty words. They resonate so deeply with every person of color in this country. And I through my words, I really wanted to send out a message of solidarity.
Outside, I would say not just people of color, anyone who's
Yeah.
on the side.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yes, yeah.
That's why I liked, obviously, because my background's different to yours. I'm a fair bit older than you two.
Yeah.
But I could relate to it, and I got the message you were delivering really beautifully in the whole piece, and that's why I thought I want to chat to you today. So sorry, go on, Farah, putting you off here.
No problem. Thank you. No problem. And the second thing that I was going to say was, you know, as a person of color myself, I found that it was really important to portray my truth and really put that voice out there. But also what I wanted to do was not isolate anybody else around us, because these are such testing times. It's, you know, we are living in a time where nobody really knows what is going on. There's been huge monumental changes all around us, and I feel that in such a time it's so important to recognize and acknowledge what's gone on. And I think that what I wanted to do was really voice all of that through the arts, via mediums that were accessible to everyone, not just a few people. So yeah, I think that gives a bit of a gist about the piece that we did.
Yeah, I'm going to include the link on the bottom of the right of this podcast. I recommend people hear it. So I know it's available as an MP3 as well, because I've just noticed that before. So I'll put both of them down there as well. Now, what other projects have you two got on the go then, basically? Because obviously, I know I can understand you work on other projects as well, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few things. Some of the stuff we're not allowed to talk about because of non-disclosure agreements.
That's why.
Until it comes into the public domain.
Yeah. That's my sophisticated interviewing techniques.
This is where my legal background comes into all the creative stuff.
Yeah,
I knew there was a point.
Farah, please tell me. No, but I think one of the sort of probably I think the most relevant project to the current discussion. We produced an exhibition for Saudi Aramco last year. It's almost, I think we started last May, so it's almost exactly a year since we sort of finished that. September, October time we finished. And it was, you might think, oh, it's strange. Why is an oil company, commissioning an exhibition? So Saudi Aramco, they set up a center dedicated to sort of the world culture and the arts. It's called the King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture, or ITHRA. And it's probably one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in my life. We'll send you a picture. That maybe we'll send you a picture. Podcast cover of us standing outside it on the opening night.
That's good.
It looks like a spaceport. Like if you look at it, you think you can see on my Zoom the Star Wars mural behind me. It looks like something that would quite happily be at home, like in a sci-fi film. It's one of the most stunning pieces of architecture I've ever been to. It's one of those, sometimes you see like renders of buildings before they're made, and you're like, when you get there, you're like, it doesn't look anything like it, or they were very good at Photoshop. No, the renders don't do it justice. When you're stood there in this space, it's mesmerizing. But we produced an exhibition that's called Being Saudi, being from Saudi Arabia. And it was sort of an exhibition that uses augmented reality and gameplay and sort of kind of like an online world technology similar to Grand Theft Auto. The whole thing is hosted by a server to tell the story of different art forms that people don't necessarily associate with Saudi Arabia. The image of Saudi Arabia that's portrayed all around the world is this place where, you know, there's sand dunes and you get your head chopped off for various things, and you know, women weren't allowed to drive until very recently, and you can't, you know, do certain things. But the actual truth on the ground when you go there and you explore is completely and utterly different to the media narrative. I've actually lived there for 7 years. I'm back in Manchester because of COVID. Usually I live in Riyadh, the capital city. And, you know, when I moved there first, I went there partly to discover, you know, is what we're being told in the newspaper true? This exhibition shows you what fashion used to be like before there was an incident in the 70s where they turned sort of very, very more conservative in their mannerisms. In a similar way to how Iran was before the Cultural Revolution, their fashion was completely different, their music was completely different. There's always been a sort of deep heritage in poetry. Most people associate Arabic with the language of the Quran, but the actual language of Arabic itself was first classified. When it was classified that Arabic is a language, it was because of poetry. Mulaqat, there's 8 sort of pre-Islamic poets that are credited with defining the structure, the notations, and the intonations of Arabic as a language. It's one of the most complex languages on earth because of all the little dashes and dots and things that you see when you see someone writing Arabic script. It's been simplified for modern times, but it's almost like the history of the language is linked so deeply to poetry. And that was one of the things that Aramco felt very, very passionately about exploring. And we also explore music and pattern making and fashion and using different sort of immersive technology. For example, you don't see a costume in a showcase. You use a sort of Microsoft Kinect style camera to try it on in augmented reality. You don't hear someone playing music. You get to perform in a virtual orchestra on touchscreens, similar to the game Magic Piano. So you actually get to choose different instruments, learn about them, learn about the regional music, but then actually play it together in the museum with 5 other people. You don't just learn about poetry. It's not just presented to you as a poetry book. You play a word game that lets you complete word puzzles and then reveal the spoken word performance by in an interactive way. You don't just learn about patterns on architecture, on tents, on fabrics. You get to put objects that represent them on a table. We put a special foil on the table that recognizes the magnetic signature of these objects. And then you sort of make a pattern that gets projected in real time onto a piece of pop art on the wall. And every single thing that you do in this exhibition is stored on it's called RFID technology. It's the same thing that's on your bank card. This little symbol here. So we put a chip inside. It's almost like a Rubik's cube. Again, I'll send you a picture of it. And part of the game, part of the experience, you have to use this device inside the room. You use it like a key, so you make it into a different shape, plug it into a hole, and that unlocks the game. It tracks you as you're going through, saves every single interaction that you've made, and when you leave, you generate a piece of art that is a combination of the favorite line of poetry that you selected, a picture of you in your costume, the music that you performed, and the pattern that you made on the table, and you take it away for home for you for free, and you get to keep the little cube as well. So it's sort of what I've just tried to verbally describe to you is kind of the way that museums are now going in the rest of the world. We're sort of still very old school in the UK. You know, when you think of a museum here, you think of objects in boxes and, you know, the occasional touchscreen and interactive thing. But in the Middle East in particular, everything is designed to engage children and teach them about their history and their heritage. And it's sort of given my organization and the teams that I work with you know, the ability to create whatever we can imagine using sensors, touch screens, holograms, projection mapping, you know, all the things you sort of hear about in sci-fi films or buzzwords kind of that are going on in the industry. We've done it, and we've got to tell our sort of, you know, we've got to tell people's history and culture and heritage using those methods.
I think something that I would like to add to that, if I may, is Saif mentioned there about engaging children, just touched upon it there. So just to pick up on that, something that we are hugely, massively passionate about is working with the youth, because we're both, fortunately, we're quite young. So, well, I mean, we are young, and I think something is that. Pardon, you've got.
Yeah, my grey hairs will argue with you there, but you know.
Oh, you've lost on the top of my head there, right? So that is all age. We go for it, Farah.
Something, no problem. Something that we're so passionate about is helping the youth and inspiring the youth, because we honestly believe that both Saif and I have come from, you know, we have very sort of distinct and unique journeys. Both of us have families, refugee families. We've both transitioned various times throughout our lives in our how could you put it, I guess, in our professional fields. And we really feel that those experiences are best used to then help the younger generation and the future generation. So we have also worked with on a lot of youth projects as well, and I think by far my favorite project was when we worked with school children. But I won't hijack, because Saif, I know that's also something that really excited you. So if you can just
biased
that,
school. But you know, I don't know. There's probably not too many children whose dads do the type of stuff that I do. So I sort of got roped into to helping my son when he was in reception years. So these are 4 and 5 year old children, and they were studying life under the ocean, sort of in the summer term. And they said, "Oh, you know, can you help us do something sort of creative with this? We want to sort of make our own video or animation or illustrations or something."
Sorry, Saif, just to stop you there. It started with your 5-year-old at the time, wasn't it, telling his teacher that he was really proud of his daddy because my daddy can make anything in museums. That's how it started. So
they saw a projection mapping that I did on the wall, and they were studying oceans, that, you know, they were studying that topic, and they were like, "Oh, can you help us?" basically. So I agreed, and I was like, "Okay, let's make an animation. We'll turn the whole of the reception year in Charlton Park School in Manchester into an animation team." The teachers were amazing. They honestly, like, I was actually considering, like, "Do you want to come on my team and help me, because you're better than some of the the people that I've been forced to work with on occasions." So what they did, we basically said, we're gonna work with the children to produce all of the artwork for the animation. So they made all of the backdrops, all of the props, all of the fish, all of the different creatures that were used, and they also recorded the voiceovers for it on WhatsApp. So, you know, completely low tech. We had no money to spend whatsoever. I think, well, apart from I paid for some licensing of music and some other bits. So basically, I just dipped my hand in my pocket and paid like 500 quid or something to, you know, get various bits of stuff done. And my animation team, who are obviously there, I have an animation team as part of my my studio, and they're already on payroll. So I said, "Look, you know, just work on this, and we'll fit it into the working day." And so we received over 250 pieces of artwork. There were paintings, collages, sort of sketches,
of sea creatures.
Yeah, and seaweed and corals and everything. And when I got this, I thought, "Oh, you know, there's 90 children. I might, you know, I'd be lucky if, like, I can use, like, you know, 5 or 6 things." But then when I got it, I was like, "Hang on a minute, what have I done? What if this child now is waiting to show their parents? Look, there's my piece of coral, there's my seaweed. No, I got 250 pieces of art." Like, and, oh my God. Like, What did
I
I do?
cannot tell you how
Oh.
fulfilling, how satisfying this project was.
Oh,
Watching Dave
wow.
grouching during that project was the most satisfying thing in the world. It was so cute.
So is that the reason why you got a few grey hairs now? Then is it?
But partly. But I didn't have a scanner big enough for the artwork, so like
Oh,
half of the
wow.
budget. Like I said, I had zero budget, but I was like, no, I can't say no now. So I went and bought like a bigger scanner than the one that I had, and it had to be a little bit raised because some of the stuff was collage, so it was like it
Wow.
wasn't flat. So and then this scanner was entirely destroyed by sequins and gold things like falling off and like So I still find stuff sometimes when I scan it. I find like a little bit residue or those shiny things somewhere that is falling between the cracks or something.
Absolutely fantastic.
So yeah, so we took all of the work, we digitized it. I passed it on to my team, who I'm not saying that we did like a Pixar job. We did what's called puppet animation in After Effects. So we kind of rigged all of the pieces of artwork and made them flap or move or do something, and sort of did animated camera paths through scenes. But the results are really, really beautiful. And we look at that. We use that now when we approach clients. We say, look, we did this for free with 4 and 5-year-old children. Give us a budget. What do the possibilities are endless if we can do this under these circumstances. Just think, if you give us a little bit of money or a lot of money, depending on the client, imagine what you can do. And it became a really powerful selling tool for us.
Yeah, I think the best part was seeing the reaction of the children and the parents, because I was actually there to see.
I wasn't there for the premiere. I was working on something.
I got front seat, so I was super, super lucky. But I think the best part of actually my entire journey of working at Ilum Studio actually was during this project. It was probably 2:30 in the morning, and there was an animation that a 5-year-old had drawn, and we were baffled as to what sea creature this was, because we didn't know what sea creature it was. So Saif took the time to help this child portray what he wanted to portray, because we had recordings as well with each animation or painting. So he actually fixed the child's drawing so that the audience could tell what it was, and it was just the most heartwarming thing that I've ever seen.
I didn't do much.
Oh, wow.
I just like sort of I helped out kind of a bit to define the shape of the animal. It was already there. They stuck it over the pencil line, so you couldn't see where the edge was. So I didn't do much, but like I said, we included every single thing that we received is in the animation.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. And maybe we can send you a link to that as well, and you can have a look. It was just so heartwarming.
Love to see whatever you send across to me, because I'm always a big believer people are talking like you two are so passionate about the work you do. It's obvious. I'd love to see it. I'm sure anybody else listening to this podcast would love to hear what work you're doing as well. So, is there any other projects you two want to talk about today, or anything else people should be aware of?
I think we'll jump back into Ithrab, because Farah, what you did with the poetry has never been done before. As far as we know, it's the first time that anyone's done this with sort of poetry in the world. But you explain it better than me.
Right. So we collaborated with somebody who had read Arabic literature from Yale University, who provided translations of classical Arabic literature. Those translations were then taken by myself.
Say hello.
We
have a cameo here.
Yeah, here's the person responsible.
Oh, right. So we have a 5-year-old here
Hey, youngest person ever on Spoken Life.
You want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
A bit shy.
Oh, I bet he's not always that shy.
No, he's not. He would actually outdo us in the podcast, actually, if he wasn't too shy right now.
Give him 2 years, he probably will. Anyway,
so
sorry.
Go back to, the poetry project. Once we had the classical Arabic poetry translated and sent over to us, I then rewrote the Arabic versions into English versions of poetry. However, the syllable count was kept identical. the intonations were kept identical and the flair. So all of the phonetics were kept identical. So in the end, when we did spoken versions of the English poetry and the Arabic poetry, they were identical. And it was the most, it's never been done before, but it was, I have to say that's probably the most challenging piece of work that we've ever done, because doing that across the board for a number of different pieces and trying to keep it identical when you're translating it into a completely different language. And Arabic, as Saif mentioned before, is a very rich language. Each word can have so many different meanings and connotations. So I was also very, very conscious to work with the professor from Yale University to ensure that none of the translation, none of the richness of the language or the culture or the heritage was lost in the process of translation. So what we had was Arabic versions of poetry that were incredibly rich, incredibly deeply written poetry. And there was like a phonetic flair, you know, it was rhythmic. The rhythmic flair was identical to the English versions that I then wrote. So completely new, but and nothing like I had ever done before, but just an incredible project to be a part of.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece. I'm going to say it's all about long, but it's an amazing piece. And with your work, not otherwise then, Farah, that's obviously not an example of your work then, is it? So is your work normally out of this project quite different then, is it, your poetry?
So usually with poetry, what I would say is okay, so I've been writing since I was 5 years old, and my favorite rule for writing poetry or whatever type of writing you want to bring into the equation, my favorite rule is don't follow any rules. So there's no such thing really as normal or not normal. However, nothing like that has ever been done before. But the kind of writing that I can't even really put a pinpoint on what we do, what we do in our projects, because we've done copywriting, we've done research writing, we've done poetry, spoken poetry, content writing, creative writing, so all sorts, just really across the board.
Yeah, it's kind of like all different types of creative writing.
Yeah, and I think
medium where we're telling the story, and we sort of we do the English side, and then we'll bring a specialist in to do the Arabic side that really understands like what we're doing, like a writer and not a translator.
Yeah, and I think something that's just really fallen into place for me, I think, is that, like I said, I have been writing since I was 5 years old, and it was always something that I enjoyed, a hobby on the side. But the fact that I went down a legal career, it's just, when I think back to it now, although I've left my legal profession behind, it baffles me because it comes into use so many times, because my English writing skills are so strong because of the fact that I've trained as a barrister. And it baffles me how life really does take you into a full round circle, because so many times while I was banging my head against those big fat thick law books, I used to think, oh, why have I done this, and why am I doing this? But it just all makes sense now. You would never think that you would have to do that in order to become a writer, and you don't have to do that in order to become a writer. But I guess what I'm trying to say is no experience is a wasted experience, and that's why I'm able to bring all of my experiences to the table, regardless of what projects we have. And that's why our projects vary as well across the range, because we have the skill set, but not only just the skill set, we've got the passion and the commitment to see every project through.
Yeah, see that with a pair of you straight away. You're that sort of people, and I could you
can
tell that straight away.
Well done. You're learning.
You do understand. You get a stage without me. I meet so many people. You get to know. You can work people like minutes. You can. So yeah, I worked out with the pair of you straight away. You're that sort of people. When you start a project, unless something dramatically goes wrong, and it does happen, like I said, you'll be there, and that project's done no matter what. So definitely with that. So now, if people want to find out more about your studios and yourselves, where are the best going?
Honestly, like without meaning to sound arrogant, we don't really have a website. We just sort of we get approached. The type of work that we do is very, very specialist, and we're so well known for what we do in the Middle East. people like sort of come to us and like bring us in themselves because they know me by name or they've seen some of my work or some of the work that I've done, you know, for other people through other people. So we just kind of we don't. It's like Farah said, there isn't a recipe for what we do. So it's difficult to put something together. We help people tell stories using different mediums. So you know, like we described like a gallery that was the Being Saudi project that was very game based. Another project that we did in Kuwait, you know, we were engaged directly by the consultants of the royal court, and it was a history museum about the rulers of Kuwait. It was a palace that was destroyed in the Gulf War, and we got called in when they turned it into a museum. They sort of refurbished it and turned it into a museum. So we helped them with managing the content creation process, and then installing it on all the specialist devices, like we said, sort of digital holograms, Pepper's Ghost type things, vapor holograms, and projection mapping on walls and on tables, screens, and just like loads and loads of different things. And we, as well as that, there was one sort of deliverable that nobody wanted to do, and so we were like, you know what, we're feeling brave, we'll take it. And it was to produce a documentary film about the story of the palace, how it was made, and then how it was destroyed, and then how it was remade. So we got to shoot. You know, I called in. I've not really talked much about how I started with this. I got into sort of the arts from a very early age. I've always been into making things. You know, it started off with like plasticine and Lego and Connects. When I got to school, as I mentioned before, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I was in year 10 when Star Wars Episode 1 came out, year 10 or year 11. And one of my best mates at school, he always wanted to be a film director. And he sort of convinced us all, let's make our own spoof of Episode 1. So, you know, my grandma sold me, I was Darth Maul, my grandma sold me like a black Sith robe. We got plastic lightsabers and plastic mask. And you know, we were running around school looking like dressed up like idiots, making this film. And because of that, I was like, well, how did they make the lightsabers? How did they make the spaceships? And I sort of taught myself how to start animating and adding visual effects using After Effects while I was in high school. And I was always a big gamer as well. So then I started like, okay, so you use After Effects to do that. How do I make the spaceships? All right, I got into 3D Studio Max and 3D modeling and 3D animation. And then I was like, okay, so I can use that in mod games as well because I'm a big gamer. And like one thing led to another. And then I just sort of found myself like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. And like joined, like it was the early days of the internet, joined various forums and found out. And I got my first freelance project when I was doing my A-levels. Like a group of uni students paid me to work on their final year project.
Wow.
And I used the money to buy an Xbox. So I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at this, man. Like, you know, why isn't this a potential career path? I don't want to be an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer. You know, I did consider architecture because, you know, I've always been into sort of that type of space design and sort of designing experiences. But I was like, nah, you know what? If I'm making games or films or doing animation, it'll be like I'm not working. And honestly, like, you know, apart from the first few years where you're coming up and you're doing junior stuff, when you get your experience and you start doing fun stuff, it doesn't feel like a job. So going back to that project, my friend from school is now a professional film director, Phil Hawkins, and I gave him a call and I'm like, you know what, I got to make a documentary in Kuwait about this palace, and are you in? Should we submit a proposal? It's really risky, but you know, I think we can do it. Let's work together professionally after 20 years. We won it and did it, and we're sort of
Fantastic.
in the final now. But it just shows you, you know, running around in costumes at school opened me up to being in charge of a £200 million project in the Middle East. So, you know.
Wow. Just shows you that indeed, that one. So, good God, respect to you, mate, on that one, definitely. So, right, we're looking at the time here. We're starting to run out of time now. So, it's been brilliant today. This really, really enjoyed this because it's been here with two completely different stories, and this one's been fantastic, guys. So, is there anything you need to say before we conclude? And people need to be aware of anything else? Or?
I think, Farah, you know what? I think you should read your Palestine piece because this piece came, it's my favorite piece of her work. It was a piece that came from stories of Palestinian refugees. Every single line is based on a real person's experience, and it's my favorite piece by far.
I would love to hear that, Farah. Would you like to read it out for us? And what I could do
Do
is,
we have a few minutes?
yes, we do.
How
Yes,
long
we
do
do. What we always do is, and that's how I wasn't sure whether you were reading tonight or not, so I was going to find a way of asking you in a moment. What we'll do is we'll pause the recording, we'll stop part one, and we'll hang around and we'll let Farah read a piece for us in part two. Give us a couple minutes to get ourselves composed. Right, so it's been brilliant today. Thank you, guys. Hang around.
No problem. I hope it was good. Thank you for
See you
having
in 2
us.
minutes, guys.
Spoken language.
Hi, guys. Okay, straight over to Farah, and she's going to read out her poem for us. Over to you, Farah, my friend.
Thank you. I'm running around the house, past all of my toys. My brother giggles as he races me, making such a funny noise. I run into the garden, barefoot on the grass. My brother calls my name. He hates coming last. But I run and I run and I run, and I run like I am free. The sun wraps itself around me, and inside I am happy. Then I hear a sound like a whistle from afar. I'm looking around, maybe it's Baba's car. But it's getting louder and louder, so I stop and turn around. My brother has stopped too. He's disturbed by the sound. Our eyes are locked and he begins to frown. Inside I hear Mummy screaming, "Get down, get down!" The panic rises inside me, but still I don't understand. I cover my mouth with both of my hands. I'm trying to move, but I'm stuck to the ground. Oh my God, help me, I think we've been found. Bang! Oh my God, I think we were found. I'm lying face down. I can't hear a sound. I'm blinking my eyes, but I can't see. I'm too scared to move. I want my mummy. When I do dare to move, it's all sticky, and that's when I realize there is blood trickling down me. Oh my God, but what about those who are dear to me? I'm trying to get up. I don't care that it hurts. I just need to know that my family is okay first. It's so quiet, and I don't know why. I've forgotten how to talk, but still I try. I take a step, but I fall back down. A dusty smoke is all around. I'm trying to see, but I just can't see. I start to wail, "Mummy, Mummy!" I start to crawl, but this isn't grass. It's cold and it's hard, and there's pieces of glass. I'm so confused. I don't know where I am. There's piles of rubble where my home used to stand. There are piles of rubble where my home used to stand. I won't let it beat me. I won't let it win. I'm determined I'll still find a way in. I'm trying to search with all of my might. I'm using my hands. There's panic inside which strengthens my fight. I need to find them. I need to see my brother, my father, my beautiful mummy. That's when I see it, and it knocks me sick. A bloodied hand amongst the rubble and brick. On the fingers I see a ring. Oh my God, he's wearing the ring. Baba, get up, I need you to sing. Look, I'm hurt and I'm bleeding and I don't know what to do. It's cold and it's dark and it's scary too. It's suddenly black when the lights go out. And when I wake up, it's all changed. There's no shadow of a doubt. There's no home, no house, no family to call my own. I'm surrounded by people, but still I'm alone. They told me they got them, but I was lucky to flee. Apparently, my family have gone, but at least they could save me. If I wasn't standing out there on the grass, those treacherous moments would have been my last. They told me I can't leave, I have to stay here now. And I look around. They're all strangers. I think to myself, how? I think of my brother looking at me after moments spent running because I was free. The sun was shining and inside I was happy, but it's all gone now, gone. It's just a memory. So I run and I run and I run, and I run to be free. But the pain sears inside me and it won't let me be. I don't know who they were, I don't know what they wanted, but they have taken everything dear to me. So now I ask each one of you that sees and hears, who hears my voice, who sees my tears? Who hears my voice, who sees my tears? And this was a piece, Andy, that was every single line has been taken by has been taken from real stories that I have been told from the mouths of refugees themselves during the refugee and humanitarian aid work that I've carried out in my work as a humanitarian and as an international aid worker. So it's a piece that's really dear to my heart, and it's actually you're actually the first person that I've read this to without prior notice of performance, because it's a piece that I find incredibly difficult to perform.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not exactly. I can hear that straight away. So.
And it's because it signifies the voice of children of war. It signifies the voice of children of war, and it's an amalgamation of stories, true stories that I have heard whilst I have been abroad.
Yeah, no, anyone replays that, it's worth your time, definitely, because I was sat there and I had to close. It's one of those sort of pieces, and your piece really grips you emotionally. And you have to just look down and close my eyes, let the words enrapture me.
I've seen grown men cry when you've done it at charity events.
I can see why. Straight away. Incredible piece. Thank you to that, Farah. And thank you, Seth, as well. So it's been great fun today. So hang around the pair of you. I need to speak to you off mic. But this is it for today. It's been a fantastic session. I've had a really good, entertaining chat with you two today. So I've learned things I didn't know about today, and that's always good fun. Take care, guys and girls. Thank you both.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
See you all soon, guys. Stay safe.
Spoken, mate.